Despite the background noise, it is time for another resto project, it seems. So it's quite bizarre. Whoops, sorry about that. And this machine works fully functional. G'day folks, Jordan here today with a HP Pavilion tower computer, or desktop computer, however you prefer to call it. This is a p7-1012, probably made around 2011, give or take, because this machine came new with Windows 7 with Service Pack 1. So probably around 2011 was when this PC was made. It is based on some fairly decent specifications for the time. Nothing too high-end, of course, but nothing that wouldn't work. And this is all original, except for, of course, the cosmetic stickers that I'm going to take off, which I need to do. And this machine is fully functional, and yeah. It has a 500 gig hard drive, 4 gigs of RAM, an Athlon 2. It says 220, but it's actually an X2. They don't mention that it's a dual-core processor on the side, of course. But this is a dual-core CPU, you know, like X2. So, yeah, it doesn't explicitly mention the X2 on the label, but it is an Athlon 2 X2 220, running at 2.8 gigahertz. And this does still have the original factory install of Windows 7 on it, so that's interesting, I guess. So, I don't know, it's a start, but anyway, let's get on with it. Now, if it weren't for the fact that the system was indeed all original in terms of the specifications and the software, and maybe because of the fact that I actually got it for free, I would otherwise not do this, because the system, for what it has feature-wise on the motherboard, is very plain and really not anything to write home about. In fact, it's really not even worth, fixing this thing up. I mean, otherwise, me getting it for free, of course. As you can see, there's no PCI Express X16 slot on the motherboard. Neither is there a third PCI Express X1 slot, although that's really nothing, too crazy, because there's already 2 of them here on the motherboard. But the biggest thing is that PCI Express X16 slot not being there. That really is a downer. There is the North Bridge, and the South Bridge is right back there. Obviously, the main processor is right here. This motherboard was probably capable of much bigger AMD CPUs and could have accommodated for DDR3 RAM slots. This only has 2 DDR3 RAM slots. And in fact, the power supply is only a 20-pin ATX instead of the usual 24. I'm sorry I didn't get good lighting on that, but you can see it's only 20-pin ATX instead of 24, which is quite interesting. I've never really seen a machine in modern times, I guess, like this, with such little power draw that it doesn't even need the full 24 pins. That's quite crazy. There's the little piezo beeper that you get on most modern machines, if you even get one. What else is on this motherboard? There are no IDE controllers. There's no floppy controllers. There's no FireWire controllers. There's only 5 SATA ports, kind of an odd number. Actually, no, sorry, 4 SATA ports. I thought there was 5. Whoops, my bad. They're just placed in awkward positions. Really not too much in the way of, plugins on this motherboard. It's really quite bare. Apparently there's a thing for the FireWire connectors, and I guess another mini PCIe or something, but there's nothing on this. So my guess is this area here would have been used for an integrated wireless card on another model of computer that used the same motherboard that this one does not have. Probably one of their even lower end machines that they have no power supply and lower power requirements and so on and so forth that runs off an external power brick. I actually used to have a desktop that had that sort of setup going on with the motherboard, and it was a pretty interesting machine. And it was based off of an AMD A8-6310 APU. And it indeed had integrated wireless on the motherboard with mini PCI Express, although it was obviously a lot newer of a system that came out in 2014, I want to say, or something like that. Maybe 2015 is when that machine came out. Oh, obviously this one came out in 2011. So at least HP actually thought about putting that feature on the motherboard. But really there's not a lot to speak of when it comes to the motherboard. In terms of some of the chips, it has a Realtek chip down there, actually 2 of them, and there's also a product of China and some interesting screw art there on the motherboard. This particular Realtek chip is the sound codec, the ALC662. And then this is the Ethernet controller, most likely, with the RTL branding on it. The RTL 8105E, I think that's what that says, I think. Otherwise, everything is pretty well sealed off. You really can't read a whole heck of a lot. There's some kind of chip down there. Yeah, there's really not a whole lot to speak of on this motherboard. It's quite plain. Although, probably considering that this was a value-oriented computer back when it was new, that's not surprising, to say the least. There is the 500 gigabyte Hitachi DeskStar hard drive down there. It is a 7200 RPM, not bad. Down there is the single stick of 4 gigabytes of DDR3, probably 1333 megahertz memory. And there is the HP DVD burner. Yes, it is an HP optical drive. Now, the system currently does not have the card reader installed, even though it would have came with it when it was new. I'm looking to get that off the original owner. He has it somewhere. I don't know why he took it out of the system and why this isn't focusing either, but that's beside the point. But he said he was going to give the card reader to me once he found it. So, yeah. And then this is pretty cool. Like most late 2000s and early 2010s HPs, they have a sliding cover or a little hiding cover or something that shows all of this front panel I/O on the front. And usually I never see machines with the FireWire or what looks to be video inputs on the front, because they usually think about those sorts of things, but they never implement them, because the FireWire would have gone there, and there could have been 2 extra USB ports behind this cover, which of course are not on this model. I don't know exactly what models would have came with it, or, sorry, those features on the front. Not quite sure. I know at least some of them do. And yes, I'm pretty sure many people are going to ask me if it has a best tech power supply, and you betcha it does. Fortunately, this is not one that blows up in your face and takes your motherboard with it. It's actually a much newer, more refined model that obviously is still functional and won't blow up, at least not without any kind of, really bad circumstance or, something of the interesting matter. Yeah, so that's about the lot with this machine. Not too exciting, but I do plan on cleaning this up and making it look as best as I can, and that's first going to start with the front panel. Now, I'm sorry for those who are going to expect a more professional style of restoration video. I really don't have much to really give in that sort of thing because my narrative mic on my iMac, give me just 1 second, I'm going to do this lazy camera work, is not very good quality. It sounds like it's only 160 kilobits per second or something sampling, so it's not very good. So what we're going to do with this front panel is we're going to coat the stickers that are left over in WD-40 because they won't come off, and there's some annoying residue on there that I may or may not have to get off later. And then I'm going to clean the front panel because it's quite disgusting. You can see all sorts of little smudge marks all over the place, including that leftover Windows 7 sticker I took off because it was peeling off too. And fortunately, it came off with no problem. The front panel is actually surprisingly clean on this thing. There's actually not a lot of dust other than this optical drive, which really surprised me. I was expecting it to be a lot worse. There you can see all the cutouts for all the different ports and options that could have been installed on this machine, including what looks to have been a front panel capture thingamabobber, like a front-mounted video input with S-video, maybe composite video and stereo audio jacks right on the front. So very cool, very cool. I actually think that's something that they even thought about. Obviously not on a system like this with a budget nature, but in fact, it's actually so budget. There's no PS2 ports, there's no serial port, there's no 5.1 surround sound audio. Again, there's no FireWire. But what is very interesting to me is something that's on the I/O shield on the inside of the case. Right there, you can make out the digital audio output jack. But of course, there's nothing there. It's quite bizarre to see that there, and nothing is occupying it. I've never seen anything like that before. There's some kind of chip down there as well by the screw, which also has some interesting art. There's a lot of these little metal caps that have not been put on the motherboard. I'm trying to find the word there for a moment. I can't be speaking today. I don't know why. There's some kind of really itty-bitty, teeny-tiny low-pin count I/O controller down there. But this motherboard could use a good cleaning with the air compressor. Same thing with the CPU fan, which is surprisingly clean. I'm actually really surprised by that. And also looks as if this needs a little bit of a blowout, as well as the power supply, and probably up in there. I'm debating on whether or not I'm going to take the hard drive out and clean it, because I think it's fine. It's just a little bit of dust that I could probably squeeze the air hose back in there and clean that out. Obviously, that needs to be cleaned. Clean out the ports. And give everything a wipe down with some disinfectant wipes just to make sure everything's nice and clean. And should be good. Now, of course, the only downside is that I'm going to have to kind of move my grandmother's car, because this is the place that has the air compressor. I have to move her car. But that's the least of my worries. I can do that in like a minute. So after I get some food put in the oven for me to make for my dinner, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Although, probably start on this front panel first, because this will be interesting to try to coat in WD-40, considering the somewhat rounded surface of the glossy plastic. Of course, all this can be cleaned up with a disinfectant wipe, but you know, sticker residue comes first. Okay, so here we are out in the backyard, and we'll go ahead and get started on this. You can see here's the front panel, and I got a thing of WD-40 here. So we're just gonna kind of put a little bit here on the sticker, and on the leftover AMD sticker. Kind of just put some on there. Probably need a little more on that big sticker there, but WD-40 don't hurt plastic too badly, so just put a little bit more on there, and then let that sit for a little bit, and then it should be ready to peel off. I know it's probably going to be hard to hear me, but we're going to let the air compressor build some pressure. And let's come check out the front panel here, and let's see if we can peel off this sticker residue. Not that one. It doesn't look like we can quite yet, so let's give that a lot more WD-40 to rub in here, and just kind of let that sit and degrade that adhesive on the sticker here. And there we go. That's the kind of crap we need to get into there. Probably a little bit too much, but really I don't care. This is a loaner machine that I'm going to put it under because it's really not worth my time or my usage, so since it's a loaner machine, I really couldn't care. Anyway, everybody's favorite part is me air compressing the dust out of things, so let's get to it here. Alright, let's get the rest of this done. I'm going to do it off camera. Well, as soon as I hit that power supply, that big old dust cloud that I'm familiar with came out. A lot of dust buried in that power supply, but the rest of the system was actually surprisingly clean. A lot of dust came out of it. Usually I expect a lot bigger of a dust cloud, but actually it was not too bad. So anyway, I might need to bring this in and let the WD-40 warm up before I can actually get this to peel off properly, and that might be the trick. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Well, I guess if you're seeing this clip, my phone's not broken. Okay, so I'll come back to this in a second, but I brought everything back in to kind of let it come back up to temperature, and I'm gonna go ahead and clean it. Of course, I gotta go feed Mom's horses because she's occupied, so I gotta go do that now. But everything seemed to clean up decently. Not a whole lot of dust left over, but that's just mainly stuck on dust that I'm going to have to clean off myself. But the power supply fan cleaned up nice. Everything cleaned up pretty nice. So that's before the disinfectant wipes, so that's not too bad. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get my, well, that, and then I'm going to deal with this front panel and see if I get the stick residue off for once. And here is after a little bit of some scrubbing. it came out alright. Of course, it's not perfect considering that this is one glossy surface for one thing, and two, that AMD sticker still hasn't come off. But I'm not too worried about it. It ain't gonna bother me too terribly much. But I do need to go ahead and kind of clean this up a little bit. And then we're gonna disinfect the case. Freaking Windows 10, of course, makes me drop the front panel on this computer and probably scratch the plastic even more. Cheap, glossy plastic and freaking Windows 10.
Well, since we're not using the computer, whatever. Restart now, whatever. Unlock the computer and let it reboot. That's pointless. Absolutely goddamn pointless.
Alright, so the machine is back together again. All back in the case, all looking nice and clean, and looking pretty good, actually. And I forgot to mention, this is the original keyboard to the computer, and as you can see, it's not very well worn. So it's in pretty good condition, so I cleaned it up too. And of course, this CD player has a bad lid catch on it, so you kind of have to play with it a little bit. But let's go ahead and turn it on. It's a very quiet computer. Very quiet. And we'll go ahead and let it start up Windows 7, which is indeed what this thing is running. I gotta turn on my lovely Logitech mouse. Frickin', this thing's hard drive is louder than that entire computer. That's just crazy. Now, it's probably because I'm swapping around configurations that it's probably booting a little slower than it normally does. That and it just, you know, it's been doing a bunch of updates recently. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and log in here. Ah, I just put on the radio on this friggin' thing. Off. Turn it off. Turn it off. Ugh. Blooper reel. I wish it was anyway. Alright, let me go ahead and press enter. Alright, so here's the original keyboard, and apparently the enter key doesn't work. Who knows why. The Windows key works though. But here we are. This is one of the factory wallpapers on this computer, and I quite like it. It looks quite cool. And I have put on Firefox Quantum because I'm actually really liking it. And I've cleaned up a bunch of the original HP bloat, not all of it. It's still got quite a bit on here, and see, we still got the HP OEM branding. Athlon 2X2 220, 4 gigabytes of RAM. Overall, not too bad of a system. Could be better, but it's not bad. I mean, it's certainly more than usable. It's actually very snappy. Makes for a very nice Windows 7 PC. So, if anybody's interested and they want to see the recovery process, although it's not very exciting, you know, let me know. Because I don't think it's very exciting. I tried it, and it's okay, it works. But honestly, it's not very exciting. But if anybody wants to see it, then you know, I'll do it. Because this is just a loaner system, and I don't have anything personal on it. But I had to go through the trouble of installing over 200 updates in Windows 7, so I really don't want to have to do that again, because that's a real pain in the ass. But anyway. So there we go. There's that system. And I think that wraps up this video, as there's not much to really show with this machine. So with that having been said, I will catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.